Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Lisa Levinson, and I'm the campaigns director for In Defense of Animals, and also helped to start vegan spirituality many moons ago. And together we explore veganism as a spiritual practice. And we do that through online events like this, but also through in-person events in many areas across the country and hopefully around the globe someday. And you can tune into those by going to our meetup groups. We have one on meetup.com and then /vegan dash spirituality. And that's one way to find a group near you. There are one in, I think, New York, we've got Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. If you want to start one of those groups, please feel free to reach out to us at vegan spirituality at idausa.org. So for now, I would love to move to our program tonight, which is super exciting. I'd like to first introduce my co-host, and from there, she'll introduce our special guest tonight. So my co-host is Judy Carmen, who is the author of Peace to All Beings and Homo Ahimsa. Hi, Judy. How are you?
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody. So glad you came, and we are so excited for our wonderful guest that is here tonight. Her name is Rebecca Wells. She's a famous author. We are so blessed to have her join us. I know she's very, very busy, so we just really appreciate her being here. So I'm going to read this bio, which you will all find fascinating, and then I'll start giving Rebecca some questions that we'll see what she has to say. And I just wanted to mention I saw some hearts coming up, and we've had a request to please don't do the hearts jumping up because it is very distracting. So as cute as they are. So if you could please not do that, that would be great. All right, so I'm going to read this amazing bio. Rebecca Wells was born on a cotton farm in Rapides Parish. Did I say that right?
Rapides.
Rapides, okay, in Louisiana. She comes from a culture where storytelling is as essential and as rich as gumbo. Her divine secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood, which I have a copy of right here. Probably many of you have seen that on bookshelves, many places, because it's a huge bestseller. It's about mothers and daughters, female friendships, alcoholism, and spirituality. It was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for almost 2 years. 2 years. The book won the American Best Booksellers Award, and it was also shortlisted for the Orange Prize. The book launched a host of Ya-Ya clubs worldwide, which I can understand after reading it. Um, it was made into a feature film by Warner Brothers. The novel has been translated into 28 languages with 6 million books in print and continues to be one of the most beloved novels about women written in the 20th century. Her other best-selling novels include Little Altars Everywhere and Ya-Ya's in Bloom. And then she has a standalone novel called The Crowning Glory of Calla Lily Ponder, which introduced an entirely new set of characters from a magical Louisiana town of LeClaire. She is an accomplished actress, playwright, and activist. She has toured her one-woman show called Splittin' Hairs throughout the country, including Alaska. The play features the character Loretta Endless, a Louisiana beautician. This is so great, who stumbles into a lecture about nuclear war when she was out at the junior college to take a class in tax deductions for beauty shops run out of your garage. When she hears that a nuclear bomb would melt out human hair and she'd be out of a job, she turns into her own utterly original pink collar activist. So you can just get the feel for that That's the great humor there, and also the activist aspect of Rebecca's life. Rebecca's play Gloria Duplex, called one of the glories of the decade, um, in which she developed and performed a title role of an erotic dancer in the French Quarter who sees the face of God in the mirror ball above her dance floor. So we all want to see that too. In the 80s, Rebecca was one of the early members of PAND, which is the Performing Artists for Nuclear Disarmament. She's a graduate of Louisiana State University. She studied Tibetan Buddhism and creative writing at the Naropa Institute. She studied acting in New York City, performed off Broadway. She has been a guest artist teaching writing and acting at University of Idaho, University of California at Santa Cruz, Washington State University, and Antioch University. Also, she's been a waitress at Yellowstone National Park and worked as an actress in regional theaters across the country and hired out as a fortune-telling gypsy for sorority reunions. So what a rich history and an amazing, just so many questions come out of all of that. Soon after the success of her second novel, Rebecca began to have seizures, trouble walking and breathing. After 7 years of misdiagnoses, she was finally diagnosed with neurological Lyme disease. For almost 10 years, she was either bedbound or homebound, but she is well now, which is wonderful to hear. Part of her work now involves examining the relationship among human-caused climate disaster, human forest encroachment, the weaponizing of living beings, which is on our radar for sure, interspecies illnesses, and the psychospiritual, physical, earthly, and universal loss and grief that accompanies the addiction to oil. She is still exploring with gratitude what it means to be a sibling to every other creature. On an island in the Salish Sea of Washington State, sounds very exotic. She lives on the edge of a forest. She seeks and finds joy in singing, dancing, writing, reading, walking in nature, and potlucks with friends. She offers coaching in learning to listen, real life fiction, and learning to sail one's own craft in rocky waters. Well, you certainly had a lifetime of that. Currently, she is writing a new book which is influenced by her choice to live as a vegetarian and then, starting in 2018, as a vegan. Rebecca paraphrases Singer when she says, "Veganism is my religion." She is honored to be here, right now. We're honored to have you here, Rebecca. Thank you so much. So, one more little quote that I want to say that says from Rebecca. Quote, "I was sprung from the jail of Southern ladyhood with the help of Janis Joplin, Yellowstone National Park, and Our Lady of Guadalupe." Boy, does that make us all curious. But let's start out with telling us about your vegan journey and what inspired you to go vegan. But I also want to know, what would the Ya-Ya sisters think about that?
Um, First of all, I was raised on a farm, as Judy said, and that meant that I ate everything. Um, my father's cows, chickens, doves, squirrels, frogs. I must be, oh, crawfish. I'm missing something, but I ate so many sentient beings. And it was not the kind of family where you would say, I'm not going to eat that. We'd be like, shut up, eat it. Um, I was exposed to the idea of veganism by a dear friend who's since sailed away, but who was a big teacher in my life. And he was like one of those kids from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who became vegetarian really early, got himself to the Vegetarian Congress in India when he was like 16. And he basically said, Becca, this is what happens. And I read Diet for a Small Planet and stopped eating meat. Animals. Now, I'll say this when we get to the Lyme part a little bit more. When I was finally diagnosed with Lyme disease, I was told by my doctors, you need to get animal protein. So, after somewhat of a very imperfect life as a vegetarian, um, vegetarian for 17 years, and then don't ask me why, my husband and I decided to have hamburgers. Just another example of how imperfect I am, and I'm not Gandhi-esque in the least. Um, so the doctors were wrong. I listened to them, and I don't think that that helped me. I think that eating the trauma of animals kept me sick and possibly made me sicker, which I'll go back to that. So then in 18, something, I'd been back to vegetarianism after I was, quote, well. And then in 18, something happened to me that I'm really not ready to talk about. It's so uh, luminous an experience for me and such a liminal crossover for me. But at any rate, I became vegan then in September of 18 and have had one, uh, I may even call it a slip. I went to visit a friend with Alzheimer's at her summer cabin, and she had somehow managed to pick blueberries. And she baked a pie with them. The pie had all kind of butter in it, very crispy. And I looked at her, and it was so important to her that I ate her pie and that she picked the berries. And I ate it. And I thought, this is one of those examples where I carefully evaluate how I express love right now. And I'm grateful for that. I hope I don't have to do that anytime soon, but it may come back. So I live a vegan life now, and that's not just diet. That includes what I wear and what I watch and how I'm entertained. And sometimes that's just very tricky. Like I really need a pair of hiking boots because it's so wet here on this island, and I can't find any that don't have animal hide on them. And so I continue to look, and in the meantime, my feet are just totally wet. And hey, that's part of what it is, big sacrifice right in the world. I want to go back a little bit because part of my journey with veganism has to do with the fact that Lyme disease is the first huge climate caused epidemic, and it is an epidemic. The CDC admits that there are at least 538,000 new cases a year. And those are only the cases that are counted or diagnosed. Um, um, that means that I was infected by another living being, my tick. At first, I could not possibly get my head around this. How could my belief had been so long that everything in an ecology matters. Everything has meaning. Everything is holy. And then this tick got me. And I was prescribed some medicine, and I was very concerned about taking it. Very concerned about Lyme in general. I called a good friend who's a biologist, and I said, "How can I possibly this happen that something living has it makes so I can't walk anymore and I'm having seizures?" And I'm not sure that he was telling me the truth, but he said right then, "Not every being is needed in every ecology." That allowed me to at least start treatment. Now, I've revisited that concept several times. Um, Most recently, a couple of years ago, when I had a flare up of Lyme. Lyme stays in your body, it goes quiescent, you're in remission, but you can have flare ups. And I had a flare up, and it's freaky. And I began to meditate with the image that all ticks, I would send them to the center molten core of the earth and they would be totally burned. And they would never hurt anybody again. And then I realized, oh, wait, take that further. So I continued to see the ticks going into the fire of the molten core of the earth and dying. and the smoke of them coming up and changing into something else, to another force that was benign. That helped me a great deal, because loving the tick has been a big spiritual journey for me, and loving the animals that carry it. Now, as mentioned in my bio, this business of climate also has to do not just climate collapse with warming, but with the fact that we human beings have pushed into woodlands. And so we have these suburbs and these woodland suburbs. And I lived on this island for a long time, moved to Nashville and moved back. And I live on the edge of the forest. I live around ticks. And so this spiritual struggle, really, to forgive it all is part of my accepting that I'm part of what created it. I am the being and part of millions of our beings that totally has the earth on fire, and also has pushed into places where ticks are fine. So are the deer, the main deer that carry them. So this loving every being is kind of easy to love a cow. It's easy for me to love most everything. The tick has been difficult. Um, so that is my ongoing part of my ongoing spiritual work. Um, to go back a little bit, I think Judy mentioned psychospiritual. Oh, I think this has so much to do with a lot of our grief and a lot of our continual and increased making war. And what I mean by that is the cognitive dissonance involved with eating another being, which are wearing another being. I just really go nuts over those huge Coach bags that a lot of people buy. And I think that skin, do you not know? And then I have to pull back any judgment. This eating and killing and wearing something that we know and that we knew as children is basically evil. But the denial that the culture absolutely slams us with and subtly insinuates us with, and I hope, consumer capitalism, where I don't watch TV anymore, but when I did, I would notice that there would be commercials. The first commercial would be for the American Beef Association, and then you'd move along and have another ridiculous show on, and then afterwards there would be ads for pharmaceuticals that were designed for osteoporosis and the other things that the leaching of calcium out your body happens when we eat animals. So well, people are like making a lot of money. And I am more and more, I don't know about y'all, but I keep going back to Watergate, which is my era of like, follow the money. Follow the money. And it always takes me back to that capitalist greed. Now, I'm not going to speak for indigenous people or for people who lived a really long time ago. I'm talking about me right now, 2025, and where we are right now. And um, so when people give me that argument, but we always ate, quote, meat. Yeah, well, we really always did a lot of other things that we don't need to do anymore. So I'm aware, especially right now, and I don't want to get too far into the news because um, I'll start crying. Um, but when I see this war making, I see it inextricably linked to the way we treat more human. And we will never, and I think I'm quoting Dostoevsky probably here, as well as a number of other people, that we will never stop killing each other until we stop killing animals. So while what we're doing as vegans it feels very small, it's so important because of its ripples. And it links for me with my pacifism. I wouldn't know how to be vegan without being a pacifist. It would seem contradictory to me. And I just want to jump and tell y'all how important it is to be here with you. I have not found any vegans on this island. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places, but I kind of hang out at the one slightly vegan place looking for people. And so there's a loneliness. And I'm going to kind of, Judy, just run all over the place. If we don't get to all the questions, somehow we'll get to it. But here on this island, uh, when I was working on this book, which who knows when it will be published, I may end up just writing it for myself. I don't know. I'm not worried about another bestseller. Kind of been there, done that. But I was walking one day at the park around the pond while I was writing, and I try not to compose sentences when I'm walking in nature, but it was very difficult. So I am composing paragraphs and I walk around the pond and I stop, and there are new signs on the shore of the pond. And one sign says, please do not feed our ducks, not anything. It will make them ill. I'm paraphrasing. The sign right next to it said, the fish here are for the education and enjoyment of families, especially children. Please try not to use a sharp hook, but if so, it's okay. Enjoy fishing. So the pond had been stocked, and it had been stocked partly with my tax dollars from the municipality, from the island, but also by Trout Unlimited. Oh, as though anything is really unlimited. So I'll tell you what I did. When I first saw them, I didn't really take into account how they were mounted. And so I just gave a really big kick to the fish one, totally threw my hip out. And I looked down and saw, oh, that is rooted in concrete. That is not just stuck in the ground like an old post office box. So I then thought, well, maybe I would get a lot of magic markers. And then I thought, well, maybe I will put on there the other facts about fish. And now I'm realizing, no, what I think I'll do is write to the Parks Department, which is deeply involved with this. And this is real local for me because I see kids with their dads and their moms basically throwing it out, doing what I consider to be interspecies sadism. And I hear about that, about being, well, we don't eat them, we throw them back in. Well, you throw them back in with super trauma, which would be passed on through generations. And I think that as I've looked at my trauma, my own personal trauma in my story over the years, I have seen how to deepen my empathy with animals by looking at my trauma, at the trauma, and the trauma that we all experience now, even if we didn't get it as kids. The pandemic put like a big tent of trauma, which is what was underneath the big tent of patriarchy. And so that sense of shared trauma, I think, is part of that expression that I borrowed to saying it's my religion. And if in fact veganism is my religion and it is yours, and this is kind of like making church, right? Uh, we got to get some good hymns going. And I mean HYMNS, not HIMs. So I've run on. Now, Judy, will you take me back to some other question?
Well, I mean,
Oh,
it's every,
yayas. You asked me about the yayas.
yes. What would they think about what how you're living?
You know, I wish you had posed that question about a year ago to give me time to think about it. I use the word addiction to oil or addicted to rare minerals and to many other things. I'm talking mainly about the regime that we're in right now. Um, Addiction's a big thing, and it's real. And there's a lot of alcoholism in this book. I don't think that the ones, the yayas, the women who are alcoholic, would probably come to an understanding of veganism until they sobered up. Because I think being an addict is one of the things we do to try and numb ourselves to pain, to numb ourselves to that cognitive dissonance, insanity that happens all the time, but we don't know it. But ask any therapist, you, Judy, that people come in, I think, to therapy, and I'm not a therapist, although God knows I have sent many therapist kids to Harvard through the amount of time that I've spent in the therapist room. Um, I think that what I hear is that many times what therapy is about is an underlying grief about how we treat animals. So I think maybe there's one Ya-Ya Nisi who might have been open to it, might be open to it. She's not an alcoholic. She has a very strong faith. While I don't participate in that faith, I have a great deal of respect for it, and that's Catholicism, and I'll tell you why. Because even though it totally did a number on me, it also gave me the face of the feminine face of God, of the divine
Right.
feminine.
Mother Mary.
And you wouldn't find that in many other churches. So while I'm certainly not a practicing Catholic, I'm very grateful for that. So,
So that leads into the question about Janis Joplin, Yellowstone Park, and Our Lady of Guadalupe. So,
yeah.
so
Well,
those had a profound effect on you, evidently. So
well,
tell us about
yeah.
that.
Well, I was raised a Southern woman, which basically means, first of all, I want to say that Southern might be a little more intense, but we all women were raised in a patriarchy, men and women, and it hurts us both. I was probably raised in the South as a more overt instruction in it. Um, and I remember in high school, I had super frizzy hair. So every morning before school, I would iron my hair after having rolled it on orange juice cans the night before. And then Janice Joplin came along, and I went, God, listen to her sing. Look at her. She is out there. As I used to say back then, it's like, it's all happening. So it took me a while through undergraduate school to let myself go that way and to step away, which I'm still trying to do, honestly, from wanting to be an object of adoration, of attraction, of living in the male gaze, which I think is a lifetime struggle for those of us in patriarchy. At least it is for me. The 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, which was just awful. I hated high school. I haven't been to one high school reunion. I mean, I'd need drugs to go to a high school reunion in that southern town. Anyway, I um, I went to Yellowstone National Park and became a waitress. And this is up at the northern part of the park by Mammoth Hot Springs. And I'm coming from this small southern town, and it's like all these people my age, these women in the girls' dorm, women from California who like no makeup, no nothing. And I put on makeup to go to high school. And they look at me and go, no, no, that's crazy. Don't do that. And then Janice had already passed away by then, but her band was still together, Big Brother and the Holding Company. So I went to see them and I talked to them about Janice, and Janice, bless her heart, bless her pain within the patriarchy, really helped me. Then it took me a while to claim my legacy being looking at the feminine face of God. And in my case, it's Our Lady Guadalupe. She is considered the patron saint of the Americas. That's with an S. And she is the patron saint of the downtrodden. In fact, many men who are crossing the border have a big tattoo on their backs of Lady Guadalupe because the belief is that it's much harder to get stabbed in the back if someone is seeing her face. My mother, um, who was not a feminist, but nevertheless prayed to Mary, not Jesus, not Christ. So to my grandmother, in fact, y'all, I'll tell you something. I once heard my mother pray. I don't know if any of you are Catholic, but she was praying, and I actually heard her say to Mary, to the feminine face of God, listen to me. I'm going to do it. Then she prayed to Jesus and she said, Jesus, listen to me. You either do what I'm asking or I'm going to tell your mother on you. So I began to realize, my God, I was given that along with the other guilt trips and all the other stuff. I was given that. And this is not that I worship a particular face or a particular person or image. It's the concept of the feminine face of God and the maternal force, the loving force that is the very force that lives within us that the patriarchy has killed and wants to continue, hasn't totally killed. And we're an example of that. That helps me look at this siblingness. That if we are in the Christian religion and other religions, as although I cannot speak to them intelligently, that if we are all related, if all of creation is related, that means we're siblings. And do we eat our brothers and sisters? If humans do that, whoa, this is a whack out. It's also illegal. And so, with this concept of being related as children of God, whatever one considers God, the universe, the divine feminine, unity, then we don't do that. And when we encage, rape, slaughter, eat, celebrate, wear, watch, we are killing our brothers and sisters. And in part, that is killing a part of ourselves and causing self-damage and damage in the world. So I do try to keep a sense of the divine feminine, and Our Lady of Guadalupe is her face for me.
That's so beautiful. And it's especially relevant in animal rights because so many of the animals that are being exploited are females for milk and eggs and, well, on and on and on. And, and you're so right that, and so many famous people have said, if we continue to wage war against animals, then we'll always have war between humans. And so what you're talking about is the essence of why we're all here. And I just love how you're describing it. It's just so relevant to why we're here, why we have formed the vegan spirituality community. And you're certainly a huge part of that for sure. And we have kind of covered some other things that I asked.
May I make a comment about this relationship of how we treat animals and how we treat women? I know that some of
Yes.
you may know the book Animals and Women and Animals, a seminal work. Um, we treat animals like we treat women, and we treat women like we treat animals. Like they are there for us. Are you a thigh man or a breast man? All of that stuff. And I was raised very much as an object, as to be an object and to be attractive. And I actually heard in the student union at LSU once, when I was getting my grits, yes, cheese garlic grits, someone saying, "Oh, I dig a breast woman." That was me. So my womanhood is also what brings me closer to the animals and to veganism.
I think we could safely say that's the very close to how we all feel. Of course, there's many male animals that are being horribly abused as well. And but the essence of the cruelty to females is beyond, just beyond imagination. And and it's something that I feel like that's one reason there's so many women involved in the movement, because we recognize that whether it's unconscious or not, we see that. And it's hard because there are so many women who don't see it and don't relate. But for you to say that the animals are your siblings, that I think is one of the big keys, is grasping that concept. Whereas, as you were talking about turning a blind eye, and the Ya-Ya sisters having addictions and so forth that keep you from facing things. like this. And in large part, I think what we do to animals is something that people are hiding from because it's so horrific. And so, yeah, so thank you so much for explaining that so well. So does did you I know you studied Tibetan Buddhism. Does that have an effect on your thinking about this, or was that just kind of a temporary thing, or was that because you're also the Lady of Guadalupe and all these other wonderful connections to spirit? How did that
Um,
fit in?
well, I'm not a practicing Buddhist now, but I aspire to be. I think that mine is sort of a gumbo of all the influences that I had of Catholicism, of the feminine face of God, and Buddhism, looking at everything being sacred, um, and at um, its emphasis both in the living in the moment and also it's a recognition that there is suffering in life. And I'm not talking about the animals there so much as I'm talking about the human animal. I think part of what prohibits many of us from sitting at a table and looking at a brisket, from feeling that is the denial. It hurts to break through denial, whatever kind of denial is protecting us from those emotions. It's a big deal. And it's traumatic in itself. And that is why I think community is so essential to be with others who are willing to do that, who have gone through that, so that we process it and we can move into the world without judgment and with love. Um, And so being willing to bear the suffering that the Buddhists tell us, isn't that the first tenet? It does happen in life. We have to be able to bear the suffering we feel at what we have done and the suffering that comes that we are empathic. And yet keep the boundaries so we don't become an empath to the point where we are angry and dysfunctional and unhappy. Because when it all boils down to, and I'm speaking about this regime in this country, which we don't need to go into, but I have decided in my life, and I try to practice it, which is this is how they win, is if I give up my joy. Try to look at veganism that way too. It does no creature good for me to suffer unnecessarily. There's necessary suffering and unnecessary suffering. I really try to tell the difference.
That you just answered my one of the questions so beautifully, because that's one of the things that we talk a lot about in vegan spirituality is how do we bear witness to the suffering once you've crossed that line and you can't unsee it. So then you have to face it almost every day. Then how do you get that to that place of inner peace so that you can approach life effectively instead of just falling apart? And I think you just answered that beautifully. That's what we're all about. We have to find that place of peace. We have to find our community and that sense of belonging, and then we can find what it is ours to do, whatever that might be, whether it's like you said, working on the sign, the fishing sign, or something huge. It doesn't matter the size of the effort. It's the heart in it, and but at the same time remaining in a place of peace. And so that's our big challenge. And I just looked at the clock and we've only got about 15 minutes left, and I know that there must be questions like crazy. So Lisa, would you like to open up for questions? There she is.
Hi, yeah, sure. Uh, I must say this. has been such an amazing and interesting interview. I have enjoyed our conversation. There's just so many highlights for all of us, and I want to thank you, Rebecca, for being your true self with us, and you are part of our community. We're just so excited that you're here, and we welcome you. Um, and I think Mary may know a bit about some questions. If anyone has questions in those people who might have put it in the chat. Um,
I mean,
and-
we were all, I think, just in rapt attention, just very, very enraptured by the stories. It was fascinating, and I laughed out loud multiple times. They're very funny. So, but the conversation in the chat has mostly been about uh, vocabulary pertaining to religion stuff. So it was just kind of a conversation that was separate from what was happening on the screen. But that was an amazing piece. Thank you for sharing, Rebecca. That was awesome.
Welcome.
I think it's very inspiring too to hear your thoughts about like as you go through this journey about the ethics and the philosophy and the theology of it. And I think that is very interesting to all of us. And I really appreciate that. I'm curious. I know you mentioned this book that may be written for yourself, it may be written for others. Um, if you would be willing to say a little bit about it. I know you had mentioned that it may involve part of your vegan um, transition or some of the thoughts behind that.
It definitely does. It's a little hard to talk about right now. Um, Novels are easier to talk about after they're out, but this is kind of like still in the oven. So I'd like to wait on that. I can't see the questions in the chat. If there are any other questions, Mary or Lisa, that you want to let me know about. I'm also, if anyone is put off by the talk of religion, I'm happy to speak to that as well.
Well, one question I have, Our Lady of Guadalupe, is that also Mother Mary? Are they the same?
She is one of the goddesses that the patriarchy killed off. There was an actual shrine to a goddess in the place where, in the Christian story, she appeared to Juan Diego. Basically, as many of you know, Christianity, I'm going to say this is my understanding from history. Christianity did its best to kill off the goddesses and to co-opt them into something that would fit with Christianity. So a goddess became the mother of God. Um, I think of her as a feminine force and a goddess whom they could not kill. They brought her in as a sweet, docile mother of God, but essentially it's the goddess culture. And another thing I note in terms of vocabulary is that let's look at the word mother of God. That means God doesn't exist without a mother, without a maternal force. And in the Christian story, an angel appears to a 12-year-old girl to bear a child. And the thing is, she says yes. Well, if she hadn't said yes in that story, there would be no story. So I'm interested very much in the goddesses of other cultures, but I can't speak to them as fully as I would like to be able to.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, that's fascinating, and it kind of goes into the whole witch hunts that took place in the 1800s, and I'm sure other times too, where women were being, if they had any kind of skill at all, were considered witches and burned, and that was a part of killing the goddess culture, wouldn't you say?
Still happening.
Yeah.
Just read the news. All examples of, in some way or the other, trying to kill women are a part of women's rights and needs. It's particularly strong now. And I will not go any further into politics, but I don't even call it politics anymore. This is morals and ethics. And I do think it's inextricably linked to veganism, um, to the do no harm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
It's such a simple concept, do no harm. It's so essential and so simple, but it's I think that's one of the great um, sufferings maybe that we have as vegans is it's so simple. Can't everybody get it? Why is it so difficult to understand that?
Well, it's very difficult because everywhere we turn, there is a sort of enforcement of a militaristic culture, thinking, theology. There's a wonderful book, you may know it, called Animal Theology, in which they're really digging into the Christian stuff, which I don't pretend to at all know much about, but that book really helped me. I think it takes really being willing to step out and be a strong woman to say this. I have several friends who are vegetarian and want to be vegan. They want to not have blood in their kitchens, but they don't because their husband wants meat. That's very sad to witness. And I love these women. I'm not judging them. It's hard to watch, though, because I know they suffer and the animals that they eat suffer. And I think that goes on a great deal in this culture where many women who are married to men who want to continue to eat animals will many times acquiesce. So it
Right.
takes being a
Yeah.
loudmouth.
Yeah, we've all seen that many, many times. And it's very difficult. I think a lot of women either become vegan after they've gotten married to this person, or they think, well, he'll change once we get married.
Well, may I
And
tell you something? I have been on Match.com. The last year, I did a year of a project. I called it the Match Project. And I have in my profile, I love animals by not eating them. And so the biggest scream for me is how any man out there responds to that. Of course, you also need to look at liberal or independent. But I love hearing these responses and I love putting it right out there. And I love reading things from men who are roundly educated, who seem funny and smart and cultured, who say, I'm a meat eater and I'm proud of it. And it's like, thank you, bye. You know? So I also feel like that's a way to be a little way of being a big mouth. You know, I really don't want any blood in my kitchen. I don't care what a hunk you are.
Oh, wow. Rebecca, this is amazing. I think being able to hear all the forms of vegan advocacy that you do, because being on Match.com and communicating with people in this way is a form of advocacy. So thank you so much for spreading the vegan message of love and light through even um, communicating in the dating world. We do have a question here. There is one about since you have and do performances. Um, there's someone asking if your performances have been accepted since you've been a vegan. And do you find any people um, changing their attitude towards you related to this new messaging or messaging that you're starting to share?
I haven't been performing for a while. The pandemic made it difficult for me since I have a history of Lyme disease, so I haven't performed in a while. But so I'll kind of veer a little bit from that, if I may. Um, one of the things that I have, I want to say, when I became vegan, I needed to distinguish between healthy guilt and shame. Shame does not help me with this. Guilt that I process and let go has helped me. It's been a catalyst, but it's temporary. Um, if I carry shame, I do no one any good, no animals any good. Um, I will say that I have really suffered by looking at some of my earlier writing. in which I did not know what animal-centric literature was or could be. I wrote a chapter in Divine Secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood, in which Sita Lee, the younger protagonist, climbs on an elephant at the opening of a shopping center. And she and her mother have a very rapturous ride that goes into a little bit into, I guess they call magical realism. I am horrified by that now. And I didn't know it, even though I was vegetarian. I remember when they made the film, and they told me, we're not using an elephant, we're using a red small plane. And I said, why are you using the elephant? The scene is an elephant. I didn't even get it then. So part of me almost wants to rewrite that, in my new awareness about animal-centric art. And I read everything with that lens right now. If it's not animal centric, now you can write deliberately a character who is not animal centric, but to have a whole book where animals are basically accessories, that's a huge critical thing for me. And I think there is a growing animal centric literary criticism that I hope to see develop. And maybe if I become smarter, I could even be a part of it. I don't really know how audiences would respond. I know how, now that it's grown in me, how I look at the part of me that wasn't ready, and I put it out there, and millions of people were exposed to that. I'm not ashamed anymore, but I have felt the guilt, and it makes me really sad to grieve that. And I hope that I can find a way in whatever years I have left. You can never make up for something, right? But you can try to make an amends, which means not just saying you're sorry, but it means I'm sorry and I will change my behavior.
That's beautifully said. And I love that, how you're saying that about the guilt versus the shame. I think that's really important for all of us to hear. Just, yeah, because we all deal with it. Because we've all, unless we were born vegan and stayed vegan, then we've had all kinds of, I mean, I could go on and on and on. Things I feel bad about that because I didn't know. And that's, yeah, that's
Well, I
what you're
think that
saying. Yeah.
the self-forgiveness is part of this vegan journey, is having that
Yes. Yeah.
self-forgiveness for, um, as you both have shared, that what happened before we made these choices. I think also bringing that sense of forgiveness for ourselves so that we can move forward with that.
And bringing it to others,
Mhm.
which can stop the judgment. To
Yes.
remember that we didn't know and we acted accordingly. And so it's forgiveness. I mean, Nolan has a quote that I love, which is forgiveness is the name of love practiced by the human family. We need to forgive every moment of every day. That is the name of love in the imperfect human family.
Mm. Beautiful. Well,
And
thank
of
you.
course, I also say apologies to the down coat that I bought 20 years ago, which still keeps me warm, and I wear it. You put it on, you say you're sorry, you thank them. You don't throw it away. I don't throw it away or give it to someone. It still keeps me warm. I wear it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you sharing all of the musings and all of the really deep philosophical and ethical and spiritual discussion that you have tonight. This has been so eye-opening, and I think it speaks to many questions and concerns that vegans have. And it's important to share those so that we can all support one another. So we are to our time, and I would love to offer some closing for this opportunity that we've had. And I don't know, Rebecca, if you have anything you'd like to share as a closing, or if not, we will come up with something.
Well, let me try and come up with something. in our imperfect human bodies, in our scarred, imperfect human hearts, in this noisy, digitally driven world. Help us be quiet enough to feel the suffering of all beings, including ourselves, to be willing to work through that and to learn from it. This is going to sound really Christian. I'm going to say it, but help us to love our enemies. Guide us as we walk forward. The main prayer I have these days is not that something will happen that I think is right. It's just, Our Lady Guadalupe, give me guidance. So I say, thank you, sisters. Maybe there's some guys here, but I didn't see you. But thank you so much for community. I long for it, and I feel like I'm being given it here. And I hope you will share I'll give you an email address for everybody, because I long for sisterhood and this.
Oh, wow.
Thanks all you and for the hard work you do.
Mm,
Thank you, and thank you.
thank you,
Thank
Rebecca.
you, Rebecca. Gosh, that
Many
was wonderful. That was so right on.
Yes,
It's just,
yes. You are a
yeah.
natural with your prayers. I can
Yeah.
see you moving
So
into.
this is our vegan sisterhood.
Yeah, here we are. This is the Ya-Ya Vegan Sisterhood of all persuasions, and we
Should
are
it be the Vava vegan sisterhood
yeah,
or
we're
something?
very, very grateful to you, Rebecca. This has been such a delight, and we welcome you with open heart, open arms. We're so excited to have you as part of our community, and just know that you are doing vegan advocacy in so many different ways through your writing, through your conversations, through your dating. we we appreciate all of it and know that you are supported 100%.
I'm putting my email in here. Give me just a minute. If anybody's even here, I don't know. Okay. Would love to hear from y'all. You can write me there or go to my website and write me there.
Rebecca, why don't you say your website for those people who are not in the Zoom?
Sure. Okay. I'll say it and then I'll spell it. Lupita's, which is a little diminutive nickname for Our Lady of Guadalupe. LupitaSDaughter@gmail.com. So it's Lupita's daughter at gmail.com. And my website is simply RebeccaWellsBooks.com.
Perfect. Well, I have no doubt that you'll be engaged in more vegan community.
Oh, I just saw a text that her husband is here too. Well, hey, I'm so glad you're here. And listen, I just want to say something I didn't say, which is I believe the patriarchy has hurt men as well, not just women. It hurts everybody. So
Yeah.
thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there were several other men too that
Oh, well, hey, y'all.
uh I think they got welcomed okay. One of them said, "Should I leave?"
Oh my God.
Oh, no, 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 no. I hope I
And
didn't
Mary
sound anti.
Mary said, "Welcome to at least one guy. Thanks for being here."
Yes.
And then
You know,
somebody wrote two. So
yes. I'm
Oh,
really,
good. No,
at
I
this,
like men. I like men.
well,
they're
let's
great.
say we're welcoming all beings, all people into this conversation that is very broad and has a lot of depth to it about
And I did not say when I was saying women, I probably should have said LGBTQ as well. So let's just assume that I meant that, but I sometimes forget, and am I just really old, but I forget to say they instead of she, but I will get it.
Thank you, Rebecca. So that's part of what we want to do is be welcoming and inclusive to everyone. And that's what being vegan is about. That's vegan
Right.
spirituality.
Yeah. Vegan is love. It
Yeah.
just is.
So we love one another and we love even, as Rebecca mentioned, our enemies who are truly uh,
That's
different
right.
versions of ourselves on that walk through the Maya of life.
Yeah.
And we appreciate your time and everyone else here. This has been such a lovely opportunity to connect. And that's why we have these vegan spirituality gatherings to really consider all these types of thoughts that Rebecca brought to our minds and to our hearts. And thank you all so much for spending time together. We appreciate you and our community of spiritual souls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many blessings to all of you, especially to Rebecca, and we're grateful
Hmm.
to everyone.
Yes.
Have a lovely evening. Good night, all.
Yes. Love to all.
Love to-
Love to all. Bye, y'all.
Bye bye. Thank you.